Okay, class, a little bit more about rebound today. We had a great class discussion yesterday. You guys brought up a lot of good points about poetry and about this novel and about Kwame Alexander himself, and I felt like we had a really great discussion yesterday. So thank you for coming prepared. Here is another video for you guys to watch. It's about Kwame Alexander. He's not talking about the rebound, but he's talking about a project that he does in classrooms. He comes in and he talks about taking things from your mind, getting them to paper, and then publishing them. It's a great video inspiring us all to become writers of our own, talking about the power of language. Be sure to take notes during class. We will have a short worksheet in class tomorrow for you guys to fill out and give me some of your thoughts on what we could use in the classroom from this video, ideas of our own, and publishing maybe our own class poetry book or our class novel of our own, just as these kids did in this video. I think it's a very interesting idea, and it shows how any of us can become published writers. So how can we start? What did Charlie Bell write about in his journals? What can we write about, and why should we write it? Why was it important for Kwame to write this novel for us, to write in verse the way that he does? How does it help students connect to it? How does it help us read through it easier? And what are some ideas about that? There are lots of issues that come up in Rebound. Towards the end of the book, Charlie, after his 4th of July with his family, he really wants to go meet Skinny because he's just infatuated with the idea of getting Air Jordan shoes. He thinks that it will make him a better person. What's something that maybe you have thought about in your life that if you can just get this one thing, you'll be better at basketball, or you'll be a better writer or a better singer if you just have this one thing? And that's what he's really determined to get these shoes. So he decides that he's going to sneak away from his party, and he goes to a roller skating rink with his friend Skinny and Skinny's cousin, who we have learned earlier in the book is not the best influence on them. So they get to the skating rink and a gun is fired in fleeing the scene. Charlie and his friends are arrested because there are 3 sandwich bags filled with marijuana in his friend's, so Skinny's cousin's, backpack. While Charlie is bailed out of jail by his granddaddy and his grandpa's law enforcement friend, Mr. Smith, granddaddy's good friend who is in the silver suit all the time, the fate of the other boys is unknown to us. We don't really hear what happens to Skinny or his cousin, other than when Charlie, he kind of pushes his mom to know what happened to Skinny. Doesn't anyone know what happened to Skinny? His grandfather responds to him, you need to be thinking about your own life. If you surround yourself with these friends that aren't going to help you, then you're not going to get anywhere in his life. But we do hear his mom mention later that Skinny is on his way home. So we don't really know exactly what that means. We don't know what's happened to the cousins or the other boys that were in this. So what conclusions can we draw about this issue that Kwame puts in this book? Why do you think he includes this event to spark a discussion about drugs or the possessions and arrests and criminal justice? Is it that he's pushing for us to understand how this happened during Charlie's life and the time period that he was in? Or does he add this so that Charlie can have this conversation with his grandfather on the drive home about surrounding ourselves with the right people? Again, bringing basketball and all the other things that Charlie is involved with his grandfather, working, the walks that they take, the reason that they go to the Boys and Girls Club. His grandfather always has these funny rhymes that Charlie is kind of annoyed with that bring this back to his life. Why is that important? Why is Kwame Alexander relating all these things to our life events? And can we relate them to our life events, not just what Charlie's going through in the novel after losing his dad and the trauma that he goes through? How can we relate little things that happen in our lives to how our life moves forward? How can we use our extracurricular activities that we're in, or books that we read, or music that we listen to? How does that affect our lives? So just something to think about as you're preparing discuss this book further tomorrow. A few more issues in Rebound, as I discussed, is grieving the death of a parent. Charlie loses his father at the beginning of the novel. We don't hear all the circumstances. We hear some flashbacks from Charlie when he finally opens up to his mom. The death of a parent is central to both the crossover and the Rebound. Let's think about the reasons why Alexander Mai had chosen this kind of trauma to put both of his protagonists in their childhood through. Maybe write down a few ideas for a class conversation about the way that the characters handle the death of a parent, and not even just the death of the parent, but in Rebound, the way that Charlie's mother handles it, the way that his grandfather and grandmother handle it. It seems to Charlie at times that his mom and his grandfather especially, his grandfather didn't show up to the funeral, and Charlie took that as him not caring. But as he goes and lives at their house during the summer, he sees that his grandfather's grieving in his own way and trying to understand why this has happened. If you feel comfortable sharing a few of your own experiences, maybe with the death of a loved one, you can write down some ways on how we can discuss that tomorrow in class. Talk about how writing can help you, how writing helped the characters in the book. CJ gives hints to Charlie multiple times. She ends up sending him a journal to write down his feelings. Write down some things that you're going through. She says that Abdul-Jabbar, the famous basketball player, writes down his thoughts. She talks about George Lucas, the writer of Star Wars. He kept a journal. Why is journaling important? Why do you think that Alexander adds these hints of CJ's in the book to talk about these famous people who write down their feelings and use a journal? I think that that's a very interesting fact. In our English class, I have you write a journal every morning. So what is important about that? Am I just having you write those? Does Alexander just use these ideas of writing a journal just to get you guys to write? Or is there something farther deeper in that? Is there something that can really help us, that can spark some feelings, that can help maybe a great writer come forth by just keeping journals? So I hope you all come prepared for our class discussion again tomorrow and can contribute to our talk on the Rebound. Again, we'll be working in our Think, Pair, Share groups before we share a few thoughts to the entire class. So when you get in those groups, be prepared to each share some things. I don't want just to be one-sided. I want each of you to come with a few things, and you will be turning in your notes at the end of class before as your exit ticket to leave tomorrow. So you'll get in your groups. We'll talk a little bit more about this discussion that we've had through this little lesson that I've shared with you guys. We'll talk about the video that you guys watched at the beginning of this one from Alexander himself on becoming a poetry writer, a published writer yourselves. And we'll share some thoughts on if you think that's possible, if you think it was just a fluke with this classroom, or some ideas that you have to help us become published writers. So I'm excited to hear you guys' thoughts. Thank you.